The narrative begins with our main character wishing for a peaceful life, but it seems his wish can't be fulfilled since he has entered the S class. Akasaki Haruya spent his whole life as a side character in school life, but he entered high school a month ago, and his reputation as a background character remains unchanged because in his class, there is a trio group of girls known as the Beauties of the S class. In this group, one girl named Kohinata Rin is charismatic and cute. The second girl is named Takamori Yuna, whose charm lies in her beauty and her long, silky, shiny hair. The third is Himikawa Sara, who draws attention with her elegance and charm. She is polite, graceful, and beautiful. Akasaki is lost in his imagination when someone approaches and interrupts him. The boy introduces himself as Kazamiya Yuki, Akasaki's classmate. Yuki excitedly asks if he gets along with the S-class girls since he has been staring at them for quite a while. Akasaki denies it, saying he is not interested in them. Yuki tells him to take some interest in his classmates and then leaves. To Akasaki, Yuki seems so lively and outgoing that he feels he can't relate to people like him. He worries that even if he tries to get along, it might only lead to jealousy from other classmates. That's why Akasaki doesn't want to change his ways, and he feels okay having no friends at school. He enjoys spending time at home and completely changes his personality once he returns. His after-school routine includes buying manga, and he happily purchases the next volume of his favorite shoujo manga as this means more to him than hanging out with others. He becomes curious about what will happen in the next volume since the previous one ended with the protagonist being attacked but was saved just in time by the male lead. Akasaki's attention is suddenly drawn elsewhere as he hears someone talking to a girl, asking her to become a model, but the girl looks clearly uncomfortable. He suspects it's not a model scout but a bully bothering her. The girl's voice sounds familiar to him. He compares this scene to one from his shoujo manga, just as the girl shouts at the boy to stop. Akasaki considers helping her, but lacking the courage, he hesitates and does nothing. But when the bully grabs the girl's hand forcefully, Akasaki imagines himself as the male lead in a shoujo manga and steps in to help, though unsure of what to do next. Despite being scared, he somehow manages to make the bully run away, who assumes that Akasaki is the girl's boyfriend. As the bully flees, the boy turns toward the girl, only then realizing that he has been holding her hand the entire time. Startled, he abruptly lets go. The girl expresses her gratitude to Akasaki, but he dashes away before she can say more. She attempts to stop him, but he is already gone. Later that day at home, he reflects on the incident, feeling deeply embarrassed by both his actions and his words. A sense of unease settles over him as he begins to worry if that girl made it home safely. The following day, Akasaki sits quietly in his classroom as usual. Meanwhile, the beauties of the class are gathered around. Rin becomes intrigued upon hearing Sarah's story. Someone had stepped in to protect her from a boy who was harassing her. To Rin, it sounds like something out of a romantic drama. However, Yuna comments that incidents like that are not uncommon. Akasaki, overhearing the conversation, is surprised to learn that Sarah experienced something similar. Sarah narrates the event in a composed tone, explaining how the boy had helped her and how she didn't even get a chance to properly thank him. Akasaki ponders Sarah's demeanor, thinking how dignified she is. He wonders why she feels the need to express gratitude at all. Rin and Yuna curiously ask if Sarah got the boy's contact information. Rin, growing animated, exclaims that it must be destiny. To Yuna, it's just like the plot of a shoujo manga. Suddenly, Sarah's expression changes. She becomes upset and reveals that her family has already arranged a match for her. Akasaki comes to a realization. He also helped a girl the day before, yet there are numerous differences between Sarah's tale and his own experience. The boy who aided Sarah must have been incredibly impressive, he thinks. However, he recalls that the girl he assisted was also quite attractive, much like Sarah. Akasaki listened carefully, but never imagined that this incident would somehow connect him to the beauties of his class. Later, Akasaki reflects on the conversation between the class beauties. It sounded familiar, but he brushes it off as his imagination. Just then, he receives a message from Naive-san, the only friend he feels comfortable sharing his passion for manga with. He heads to a cafe, a familiar place he has been visiting since entering high school to spend time alone in peace. He comes here 3 times a week. At the cafe, Akasaki encounters Kohinata-san, a waitress who works there. He briefly notes that she bears a resemblance to the elegant girls in his class, like Kohinata, but quickly dismisses the thought. As a frequent customer, he shares a certain familiarity with Kohinata. He considers replying to Naive-san's message, but realizes she might already be upset, as he had forgotten to respond earlier. Sure enough, she is annoyed. Just then, Kohinata brings his order to the table. However, Akasaki notices something unusual. She appears somewhat awkward. He thanks her politely. Moments later, Kohinata drops her composed demeanor, takes a seat across from him, and begins to speak. At the same time, Akasaki is distracted by another message from Naive-san, who tells him that something troubling has happened to her. Trying to focus on both conversations, he listens as Naive-san explains that someone had tried to approach her friend in an uncomfortable way. Simultaneously, Kohinata confides that someone had also tried to hit on her. This coincidence strikes Akasaki as strange, and he is taken aback. He recalls how the popular girls in class had been discussing a similar issue, and he begins to wonder if such incidents are more common than he previously thought, especially since he had witnessed something like that only yesterday. Kohinata, observing the look on his face, assumes that Akasaki doubts her story. She then clarifies that it wasn't she who was approached, but rather her friend. Akasaki reflects that Kohinata is certainly beautiful enough to attract attention. He thinks the same of Naive-san, whom he has met in person during their offline manga meetups. Even the girl from the previous day, she too was strikingly attractive. Akasaki starts to feel a sense of excitement. Could it be that a story straight out of a shoujo manga is beginning to unfold around these beautiful women? After leaving the cafe, Akasaki stands in the middle of the walking bridge, distracted by his thoughts about the conversation earlier. Just then, a woman accidentally bumps into him, and he instinctively catches her to prevent a fall. To his astonishment, it turns out to be the same girl from the previous day's incident. Surprised, Akasaki tries to excuse himself quickly, offering a polite goodbye. He worries it might seem unsettling to her if they keep encountering each other like this. However, the girl grabs the back of his shirt, stopping him. She insists that she wants to repay his kindness. Akasaki modestly declines, saying it isn't necessary, but she persists. Eventually he agrees and she takes his hand, asking him to follow her. Back at the cafe, the girl thanks Akasaki for helping her not just once, but on both occasions. He smiles and responds warmly, saying there's no need for thanks. After all, she already treated him to a delicious cake. The girl becomes animated, enthusiastically talking about the sweets served at the cafe. She exclaims how incredible they are and mentions that people often say she doesn't seem to dislike anything. Akasaki is taken aback by her sudden energy and blurts out that she's quite talkative. She apologizes immediately, but he clarifies that he meant it in a positive way. It's good to express one's preferences and opinions. An awkward silence follows, and both of them become slightly flustered. Eventually, the girl thanks Akasaki once again and says goodbye. He offers to walk her home, but she politely declines. As she walks away, Akasaki is left wondering what she thinks of him. He worries that she might find him unpleasant or strange, and quietly assumes they may never meet again. At school the next morning, Rin excitedly exclaims that it must have been a fateful encounter. Akasaki, overhearing their conversation, wonders if Sarah has finally met the mysterious boy again. Rin, clearly delighted, announces that Sarah-chan even treated him to a meal. Both Rin and Yuna express a growing curiosity about the boy and eagerly say they want to meet him. However, Sarah quickly clarifies that she has no romantic feelings toward him. She simply wanted to show her appreciation. Her friends tease her nonetheless, and Sarah, blushing with mild frustration, denies their assumptions in a flustered yet endearing manner. Listening to all of this, Akasaki abruptly stands up, clearly confused, and leaves the classroom. The more he hears the popular girls talking about the incident, the more familiar the details sound to him. Still, he firmly convinces himself that the person Himikawa-san has described must be someone entirely different, someone far more impressive than himself. Feeling overheated and restless, he decides to go to the rooftop to cool down. There, under the intense sunlight, he removes his glasses, which catch the light and reflect it off the surface. As he stands quietly, he hears a voice nearby admiring the view from the rooftop. The tone of the voice strikes him. It sounds remarkably similar to that of the girl he helped the day before. When he turns to look, he is startled to see Himikawa Sarah standing there. She immediately recognizes him and, smiling brightly, says with surprise that they attend the same school. She expresses her surprise with wide eyes, exclaiming how unexpected it is to discover that they attend the same school. She looks genuinely thrilled, finding joy in the coincidence of meeting him yesterday and now realizing they are classmates. It feels almost like fate to her. At that moment, Akasaki comes to a startling realization. The boy Sarah and the others have been discussing all this time. The one who helped her, the one they described as so impressive, was actually him. As the truth sinks in, Akasaki, drenched in sweat, struggles to accept the image they created of him. He doesn't see himself as cool or admirable, certainly not the way the admired girls in class have been portraying the mysterious savior. Their enthusiastic praise has likely shaped the entire class's perception, casting the unknown boy as a handsome, heroic figure. Akasaki begins to worry. If Sarah were to announce in front of everyone that she found the boy, and that he is a student at their school, the class might begin an enthusiastic search to uncover his identity. And if they discovered that the cool guy is actually the quiet and seemingly unremarkable Akasaki, it would be deeply embarrassing. He resolves to do everything he can to keep his identity a secret. He is pulled out of his thoughts when Sarah comments softly that the sunset looks beautiful. Just then, she realizes aloud that the rooftop is a restricted area and no students are supposed to be there. Akasaki confesses that he came up only because he noticed the lock was already broken. Sarah frowns slightly, saying that even so, it's not appropriate to be there. Akasaki quickly points out that she is here too. She admits she wasn't feeling well and came up to clear her mind, but now she intends to report the broken lock to the school faculty. Akasaki agrees with her sense of responsibility, but he also doesn't want to lose this peaceful view, and more than that, this moment with her. Acting on impulse, he gently takes her hand and says earnestly that he'll do anything if she agrees to keep this encounter and his identity a secret. Sarah asks Akasaki to share contact IDs, a request he doesn't consider significant at first. Just before exchanging, he remembers that his real name is still visible on his profile. To avoid being recognized, he quickly changes it to the name of his favorite manga protagonist. After the exchange, Sarah notices that his ID displays the name USI and becomes curious about which class he belongs to. Akasaki, determined to keep his identity hidden, invents a response, claiming to be in Year 1, Class I. Sarah, however, knows that the first-year classes only go up to Section H. Despite this clear divergence, she doesn't react negatively. Instead, she responds with calm amusement, showing no sign of suspicion or offense. Akasaki finds momentary relief, thinking that appearing dishonest might reduce her interest in him. Yet to his surprise, Sarah responds with warmth and friendliness, making him realize that his attempt to distance himself may not have worked. She also encourages a more casual dynamic between them, choosing to refer to him as Asai-san and asking to be addressed simply by her first name. She expresses a sincere interest in getting to know him better. Akasaki begins to worry that if he continues to make a strong impression, it may draw more attention to him. His internal plan remains to behave in ways that reduce others' curiosity so that he can return to the peaceful, uneventful life he values. Later that evening, Sarah lies on her bed, thinking about how unusually bold she has been throughout the day. She reflects on how Akasaki used her first name and fabricated a class that doesn't even exist. Despite the oddity of the encounter, she finds it charming, considering him to be a unique individual. The coincidence of attending the same school, following the events of the previous day, continues to surprise her. It all feels spontaneous and uncanny, as if taken directly from the pages of a shoujo manga. Now that they have exchanged IDs, she considers sending him a greeting. Wanting to keep it simple and nonchalant, she decides to send just a sticker. As she hesitates over what to send, she questions why she feels this way, since this experience is entirely new to her. She insists to herself that it's not a romantic interest, but rather a desire to properly express gratitude. After some thought, she sends the sticker and reflects again on her boldness. Deep down, she realizes she simply wants to know more about Asai-san. As Akasaki stares at his phone, his gaze lingers on Sarah's contact ID. Though it had been a spontaneous decision, he still couldn't believe he now had the contact information of someone from the most admired group of girls in school, Sarah herself. His surprise only deepens when he notices a new message from her, asking if they could have lunch together the following day on the rooftop. He reflects with some regret that he should have acted in a way that distanced them more, as it seems Sarah remains as friendly as ever toward him. The next morning, fatigue clings to him. He had barely slept, kept awake by thoughts of her message. As he walks into the classroom, he overhears the admired girls discussing something that instantly catches his attention: the news that Sarah has exchanged contact IDs with a certain boy. This makes him feel uneasy. The group continues chatting, with Rin appearing especially eager to hear every detail. However, Sarah remains reserved. choosing not to share much. She admits that speaking about it unsettles her, and she prefers to keep the memory to herself rather than turn it into a public story. Yuna seems to understand, gently reassuring her that there's no need to explain everything. She even offers to handle Rin if her curiosity becomes overwhelming. Watching the way they support one another, Akasaki quietly acknowledges the closeness these girls share. The conversation shifts again when Rin brings up the name Asai-san, asking if it sounds familiar to Sarah. Akasaki's nerves tighten as he wonders if they're now trying to uncover who he really is. Yuna casually reveals that the name Asai is actually the name of a protagonist from a popular shoujo manga. Both Rin and Sarah seem surprised, admitting they didn't expect Yuna to know something so specific. With slight embarrassment, Yuna explains that her cousin reads those stories, and that's how she knows. Relief washes over Akasaki. The topic has shifted naturally, and his real identity remains safely hidden, at least for now. During the lunch break, Akasaki reflects on his earlier intention. If Sarah's perception of him still hasn't dropped, then he plans to lower it during this encounter. With his mind made up, he heads to the rooftop and finds Sarah already waiting. They acknowledge each other, and Akasaki deliberately sits at a noticeable distance, hoping to subtly irritate her. He begins eating some snacks he brought, which leads Sarah to inquire if he often relies on convenience store food. Seeing an opportunity to damage his image, Akasaki explains that cooking feels like too much trouble, so he usually opts for pre-packaged meals. Rather than being disappointed, Sarah responds by offering her homemade bento, expressing a desire to show her appreciation. Akasaki feels refusing her would seem disrespectful, especially since it's clearly a gesture of gratitude. He reluctantly accepts, although he worries that finishing the entire bento might make him seem selfish or inconsiderate, perhaps helping him appear less admirable. Despite his plan, he ends up eating the whole thing, and his enjoyment is evident. Observing this, Sarah suggests they share lunch together regularly and tells him she'll wait for him again the next day on the rooftop. Akasaki agrees, and she leaves with a light step, visibly pleased. Left alone, Akasaki questions whether his efforts to lower her opinion of him have had any effect at all. Returning to the classroom, he feels uncomfortably full after eating so much. He notices Sarah talking to her friends, describing how good it feels to have someone genuinely enjoy the food she prepared. Yuna and Rin chime in, admitting they haven't experienced that themselves, but imagine it must be a rewarding feeling. They wonder aloud whether Sarah is speaking from experience, though she quickly denies it, insisting her comments are purely hypothetical. Akasaki, overhearing this, grows more uneasy. The fact that he ate all of her bento is now echoed in their discussion, making him feel even more self-conscious. Sarah continues talking, saying that seeing someone happily eat her cooking was unexpectedly delightful. Since she lacks confidence in her culinary skills, the act of someone finishing everything she made felt like a sign of trust. She quietly wonders whether Asai-san shares the same thoughts about her. Her friends offer cheerful encouragement, expressing hopes that she'll have more chances to share meals with him. Elsewhere, Akasaki walks off, drained. No matter how hard he tries to reduce her admiration, everything he does seems to increase her interest instead. Realizing that this trend might continue, he resolves to at least keep his real identity hidden. Later that evening, he sends a message to Neu-san, asking to meet up. Akasaki shares his current dilemma with her, explaining how the popular girls in his class have begun praising him, and how he wishes she could help him manage the situation. But Neu thinks he is bragging, which frustrates Akasaki, as he insists that's not his intention at all. Meanwhile, Yuna offers her own insight. She calmly suggests that when two people spend time together, their true personalities eventually come to light. She casually proposes that he go on a date with Sarah. Though the suggestion makes Akasaki uneasy, he knows that asking Sarah out could potentially help lower her opinion of him, something he still believes he needs to do. The following day during lunch break, Akasaki finds Sarah already waiting on the rooftop. Without directly expressing it, he awkwardly asks whether she would be willing to go out with him over the weekend. Sarah, visibly flustered by the mention of a date, still agrees, saying that if he is fine with it, then so is she. When the day arrives, Akasaki unexpectedly finds himself caught in a troublesome situation. He comes across a lost child and feels responsible for helping. This results in him having to take the child to the police, which delays him significantly. Although he manages to inform Sarah about the situation, he still feels guilty for making her wait. He worries that showing up late and being involved with the police may have unintentionally hurt his image, perhaps, in a strange way, helping his goal of appearing less admirable. Eventually, he meets up with Sarah and offers his apologies, getting a simple excuse about missing his train. Sarah doesn't seem upset. Instead, she responds cheerfully and asks whether he still has any plans for the rest of the day. Akasaki assures her that everything is already organized and that the rest of the day will proceed as scheduled. He has carefully planned each detail of the outing, all with the specific intent of coming across as less favorable, hoping that, by doing so, he can bring things back to the ordinary life he misses. Akasaki and Sarah spend the day at the mall, engaging in a series of athletic games. Later, while resting in the designated seating area, Akasaki thinks about their lunch plans. He has already decided to take her to a casual Koya chain restaurant. Despite encouraging Sarah to participate in every physical challenge, he ends up losing each match. He considers this a small success, believing it will make him appear less impressive in her eyes. While they sit together, Akasaki casually acknowledges Sarah's athletic ability. In response, she attributes her skills to being part of the Himikawa family. However, Akasaki silently disagrees with the idea that family lineage is the reason behind her talent. Sarah goes on to explain that her family holds extremely high standards, expecting her to excel in all areas, whether academics or athletics, in order to uphold the Himikawa name without bringing shame to it. Akasaki, however, doesn't believe the environment alone is enough to produce skill. He reflects that regardless of background, true ability comes from personal effort and dedication. Wanting to express this, he tells Sarah that her excellence comes from her own merit, not just her family's expectations. The sentiment catches her off guard, and she expresses her appreciation with clear emotion. As they continue talking, an unexpected interruption occurs. The young girl Akasaki had helped earlier in the day approaches him, calling out to him using his real name. Her mother follows closely behind and thanks him politely. In that moment, Akasaki's actual identity is revealed to Sarah. Instead of reacting with suspicion or disappointment, Sarah becomes visibly moved by the kindness he has shown the child. She asks whether that situation was the reason for his delay earlier. Akasaki affirms it, and Sarah acknowledges the name revelation as surprising but says it doesn't affect how she views him. Akasaki explains that he had his own reasons for using a different name, and Sarah responds with quiet understanding, assuring him that she won't share his secret with anyone. Still, Akasaki feels uneasy. Now that Sarah knows who he truly is, the quiet and ordinary school life he values so much may soon slip out of reach. The next day at school, Akasaki feels on edge. Now that his true identity has been revealed to Sarah, even though she promised to keep it a secret, he remains uneasy, unsure whether things will stay as they were. Meanwhile, the popular girls are talking nearby. Rin brings up the topic of ideal types, and Sarah responds with a description that seems personal. Someone who helps others quietly without using it as an excuse for being late. The tone of her answer makes it clear to everyone that she's been in an especially good mood lately. Sarah begins to mention their visit to the shopping mall, which makes Akasaki increasingly anxious. He worries she might share too much, so he decides to remind her privately during lunch break. Before class begins, their homeroom teacher, Tokoyami, arrives earlier than usual with an announcement. She explains that all students will participate in an inter-class exchange activity. The objective is to gather in the gym within a time limit, rotate groups 4 times, and hold proper 3-minute conversations with each group. She also mentions that students may end up being paired with their own classmates during the rotations. Yuki casually comments that boys from other classes have been looking forward to the event because of the 3 most admired girls in their class, hoping to be grouped with them. This thought unsettles Akasaki, and he silently wishes for the lunch break to come soon. At lunchtime on the rooftop, Akasaki meets Sarah, who unconsciously refers to him as Asai-san, despite now knowing his real name. He wonders why she hasn't looked into him more deeply now that the truth is out. Sarah simply says she prefers to learn about people through natural experiences rather than seeking information directly. She then brings up the exchange event and asks if his class has also been informed about it. Akasaki finds this ironic, since they are in the same class, but doesn't correct her. She adds that she hopes to meet him during the activity, while Akasaki privately hopes for the opposite. 3 of the 4 exchange sessions pass, and Akasaki manages to avoid being grouped with Sarah. However, in the final round, he sees her standing in front of him. Their eyes meet, and they greet one another. Akasaki introduces himself as Akasaki from her own class, which causes Sarah to pause in realization, though she says nothing. As they talk, Akasaki comments on her long hair, asking whether she likes it. She replies that she does, but admits it's difficult to manage. Then she points to a familiar mark on his clothing, observing that it's in the exact same place she noticed on Asai-san before. When she asks about it, Akasaki mentions it came from the rooftop. This detail instantly clicks with Sarah, and she reacts with shock, finally understanding that Akasaki and Asai are the same person. Akasaki, clearly flustered, tries to deny it, insisting he's someone else. Before anything more can be said, their time together ends. Sarah walks away, now certain that Akasaki is indeed her classmate. The realization feels like fate, something so implausible it borders on unbelievable. But just as she processes this, a message from her father arrives, informing her that they have selected her marriage partner. The reminder hits her hard. She suddenly recalls who she is, a member of the Himikawa family, someone bound by duty and reputation. Her mood darkens with the pressure of those expectations. As she's lost in thought, Rin and Yuna call out to her, sensing something is wrong. They ask if something happened during the exchange event. Sarah denies it, saying it's a personal matter. The two friends decide not to press her and instead suggest going to their favorite restaurant. Sarah declines, saying she has to return to class. They leave without her. Left alone, Sarah reflects on her situation, questioning her own choices. She reminds herself that someone like her isn't allowed to have a typical romance. Yet even with those obligations looming over her, she wonders if there's still a little time left to enjoy something genuine. Her attention shifts to her phone, where she sees a new message from Akasaki, asking to meet after school on the rooftop.
Here I am.